We start in South Africa, where a turf war is fueling violence in the country's taxi industry. A few Uber vehicles were set alight in Johannesburg and Pretoria this week. Metered taxi drivers accused Uber of being encroaching into their territory. There are around 700 Uber drivers in South Africa, and despite repeated attempts to draw attention to their safety concerns, drivers say nothing has changed so far. Now, Police Minister Fikile Mbalula has been criticized for failing to take action and ensure the criminals are arrested. Uber has condemned the violence, while the South African Meter Taxi Association has denied any involvement in the attacks.
Uber is illegal in this country. Uber is not registered, and Uber is not a meter taxi company. It's just an app. And the people who connect to that app, they are not meter taxis. They are just mere cars, unidentifiable cars. If you are a meter taxi, you must register at the registrar office. You must have permits. You must be known on the data. You must be on the data, so that you must have a starting point.
Well, let's get an update on this. Sumitra Naidu now joins us in Johannesburg. Sumitra, as always, welcome to the show. Now, these taxi wars, they've been escalating for a while now in South Africa. Give us a sense of just how serious they have become, and certainly their impact on local customers there.
That's right, Uche. It has become quite serious and very dangerous, not only for drivers on both sides, but for passengers too using the services. So in July, an Uber driver was killed. He succumbed to his wounds after his car was set alight in Pretoria. Another driver was severely burned. A man posing as a passenger poured petrol over the driver and set him alight. Fortunately, he survived the attack. But in the last 2 weeks, in the last week or so, 2 cars were torched in Sandton and another car was attacked in Pretoria. It's turned into a full-on war between Uber drivers and taxi drivers, and it's now becoming extremely dangerous for passengers too, as they're being caught in the middle. It's also become quite inconvenient for those wanting to be picked up or dropped off late at night. Uber drivers can't travel into certain parts of the Sandton CBD. Customers that request Ubers are being told to meet further away from where they need to be picked up. And, you know, if you're alone and it's late, you don't really want to be walking around. So people are starting to stay away, and some are forced to look for alternative transport.
Now, Sumitra, as we mentioned earlier, authorities there have been criticized for what many call a weak response to the violence. Now, the finger has also been pointed at Uber for allowing this situation to escalate. Where does the blame lie?
So the police have been rather slow in their response to the attacks. Of course, they can't be all over all of the time. But as you said earlier, this has been escalating for a while now. There's been tensions for some time, and many believe that the slow response has become part of the problem. So taxi drivers seem to be taking the law into their own hands now with this sort of mob justice style of dealing with their gripes. Uber drivers too are now starting to retaliate because they're not being protected and are being attacked continuously. So the Department of Transport stepped in last year and again a few months ago to resolve this issue with both sides, but that fell to the wayside after taxi associations said they were not invited to those meetings. Now, government is looking at more regulation for the industry, but they've already put some of those into place. The Land Transport Bill was amended last year, approving Uber drivers as metered taxi operators, so they, within the law to operate. But Uber, the company itself, is also struggling to control its own policy. So what's happening is that there are more and more drivers coming on board as Uber drivers without the correct public driver permits. This, of course, is not sitting well with taxi drivers.
Now, more on the reasons, Sumitra. Some have pointed to growing economic anxiety in the country as a key factor fueling these clashes. What's your take on some of the other reasons behind what we're seeing?
So we are in a weak economy. Consumers are finding it tight in their pockets. So it is a situation where there's not enough to go around. And this is one of the reasons that Uber and the new Taxify operators are more popular, because they are cheaper. Traditional meter cabs have always been very expensive. And understandably, it's a real frustration and stress if this is your livelihood. But consumers are also enjoying the benefits of getting into newer and smarter cars. The technology works for them. They don't have to phone to request a car. They know exactly how long it's going to take to reach their destination. The drivers know where they're going, as they all use GPS. So it's become a consumer choice element here as well. So while economics does play a part here, it's also really what the consumer wants. And Uber drivers and Taxify drivers have become the more popular choice for many of the consumers.
Well, many thanks for that update, Sumitra. Sumitra Naidu joining us there in Johannesburg.